All right. Yeah, so welcome to the presentation of our paper, which is titled Spatial Domain Wireless Jamming with Reconfigurable Intelligent Surfaces. And this is a joint work with my co-authors Philip Mackinson, who will take over for the second part of the talk, and Stefan Roth, Aydin Seskin, Christoph Paar, and Vilas Sami. So today, as you all know, and we are on the wireless session, wireless communication takes a vital role in our daily lives. And one particular example technology for this is Wi-Fi. And I'm sure that most of us will have Wi-Fi devices at home. And one example use case is to provide, as we show here, connectivity to smart home devices. The problem that inherently every wireless communication device faces is that the communication interface is exposed due to the open nature of the wireless channel. And this, in turn, makes all of these wireless devices vulnerable against wireless jamming. So the reason for this is because attackers do have remote access to the communication interface. And they can inject interfering signals, and thereby overshadow legitimate signals, and this then leads to denial of service attacks. And in fact, this is being exploited by criminals in the wild to perform burglar and by detecting smart home security systems, for example. In our paper, we revisit wireless jamming attacks. And in fact, wireless jamming is a long-standing and also a well-studied topic in wireless security. However, we argue that the threat exploration must continue to keep track with the recent advancements in wireless technology in order to assess how these advancements shift attacker capabilities. So in our work, we study wireless jamming in view of the more recent emerging Reconfigurable Intelligent Surface, or RIS technology. So let me briefly explain to you what the RIS is. And for this, we first need to understand the concept of smart radio environments. So traditionally, we assume that we can optimize a wireless link on both ends of the channel. Yeah, we have the transmitter and we have the receiver. And usually in the traditional communications engineering, we tweak either of or both of these devices. But we take the environment in between the devices for granted. We cannot change the channel. Now, with the smart radio environment concept, we assume that we can at least partially adjust the communication channel, so the environment, in order to work better for the wireless communication. And this is actually where the RIS technology comes into place. Here we have digitally controllable propagation elements distributed in the environment. And these devices, they can be adjusted to adapt the reflection properties to, for example, steer certain reflections from a wall towards a particular device. And this is achieved by distributing many sub-wavelengths reflective elements on the surface. And then each of these elements is individually addressable to change the reflection coefficient of these unit cell elements. So what we usually do is we have either a reflection element of a reflection coefficient of +1 or -1, and this is a so-called binary tunable reconfigurable intelligent surface. This is also such a device that we used in our study. So fortunately, they can be implemented as low-cost printed circuit boards. So we have actually a PCB, and on the front we have the reflection elements, and then on the back we have the control circuitry. And the control circuitry can change every reflecting element in order to then be optimized towards the wireless environment. These devices are also readily available as open source, and the device that we used in our study is also available on GitHub. All right, so let me now get back to classical jamming attacks. So in the classical jamming attack, the attacker imprudently simply emits a strong interfering signal to then disable all of the devices in reach of the attacker. However, there are certain scenarios where the attacker might want to only disable a certain subset of devices. And this is actually what we found that the RIS enables. So if we grant the attacker access to an RIS, then it's possible to only target specific devices in the environment and such that the other devices remain operational, but only, like here, only one device is being jammed. With that, I hand over to Philip.
So to assess whether our attack actually works, we conducted an extensive amount of experiments, which we present in great detail also in our paper. And for our experimental setup, we have two rooms. One room consisting of a victim Wi-Fi network with an access point and 10 Raspberry Pis, which are connected to the access point for Wi-Fi connectivity. And in a separate room, we have our attacker setup, which mainly consists of a directional antenna, which faces an RRS with 768 elements. And we perform an attack strategy, which consists of two steps. And in the first step, we passively optimize, we passively adapt the RRS configuration. And in the second step, we actively transmit a jamming signal. So for simplicity, let us just consider that we want to target the device D1, jam this device, and leave all the other devices in that room operational. So what we first do is we passively eavesdrop on the wireless environment of this victim room. And then with that, we adapt the RRS configuration. However, since our RRS consists of 768 elements, it is not possible to test every configuration. So what we do is we employ a greedy optimization algorithm that we can give basically an optimization goal, and this algorithm tries to find a local optimum for us. And with this algorithm, what we can do is we can actually shape the received signals, signal strength from the devices. So on the right-hand side, you can see the progression of this optimization algorithm. And we let it run for 10,000 steps, which took around 5 minutes. And on the vertical axis, we can see the received signal strength indicator values, where a greater value means we receive a stronger signal, and a smaller value means we receive a weaker signal. And now for the device D1, we can see that this optimization algorithm actually maximizes the reception of our target device, while it minimizes the reception of all the other devices. And after this algorithm finishes, what we obtain is an RS configuration that basically encodes this strong reception of our target device D1 and the weak reception of all the other devices. And in our second step, where we perform the active jamming, what we are actually doing is that we exploit the reciprocal wireless channel. So the attacker signal transmission behaves the same way as the reception of signals. And with the previously adapted RS configuration, if we now flip this around, what we get, and then transmit a jamming signal, what we get is that our target device D1 gets jammed because it receives a very strong jamming signal, while all the other devices remain operational since they receive a very weak jamming signal. And we conducted this experiment actually for all of the devices in that room. And then we measured the packet reception for each of the devices. And basically, each row represents that the device that we want to target, for instance, the device D1. And as you can see, the brighter values, brighter cells mean that we have a great packet reception, and the dark purple cells basically mean that the device has been jammed and is not operating normal anymore. And in the diagonal, you can actually see that this works for all of the devices in this room. So what we can actually show with this is that we can actually do this single target selective jamming of devices in the spatial domain. But this is not the only thing we can do. The attack likewise also works if we want to target multiple devices. And for this, we consider the extreme case where we want to jam all devices but a single device. And for this, we basically conducted the same experiment again, but this time each row represents that the target that we do not want to target, the device we do not want to target, and for instance, if we consider the device D1 again, we can see that the device D1 remains operational, the access point, of course, but also the device D7. And all the other devices are actually getting jammed. And now you might asking what is with the device D7, and the reason why this device remains operational is that it's in very close proximity to the access point actually, and thus it receives a very, very strong signal and makes it more difficult to jam. And in the previous experiments, we only did take a look at devices scattered in a room, and we also wanted to test the limits of this attack. So we deployed 2 Raspberry Pis in very close proximity to each other with like 5 millimeters apart. And then we wanted to measure the throughput of these devices. First with the jamming off, and then we turned the jamming on and first targeted device D5, D6, and then we targeted both devices. And as you can see, this attack still works even though these devices are in this very, very close proximity to each other. And another thing we can see is that it is possible to dynamically target devices by just also switching the RRS configuration. And with this, we want to summarize and conclude our work. What we showed is a vivid example for the threat potential for the RRS technology, where we introduced the spatially selective jamming attacks, and this significantly lowers the bar for sophisticated jamming attackers. We conducted a lot of experiments, but only showed a subset. So if you're interested in reading more about this, feel free to scan the QR code and read our paper. And we are also happy to answer any questions. Thank you a lot.
Sorry for asking again. So I think when you compare with the other jamming, I think you can do control plane jamming. So if you do only control plane jamming, then the jamming cost could be actually really, really low instead of the jam the whole frequency. Because, for example, in case of cellular, basically you can just jam only the control channel. That's actually very low bandwidth. And I think even in case of Wi-Fi, I think they should be able to actually jam just the control channel. Then even if there is other bandwidth available, I think it can be really, really cheap. Did you check any of those papers?
No, we didn't, but that's a perfect example of what we want to do at some point, because what you refer to is a class of selective jamming on a protocol level. Yeah. We are on the physical level and on the physical layer. So we have the first basically physical layer targeting mechanism. If we go a level up in the protocol...
What I mean is that actually, even in case of physical layer, you can actually, because some particular frequency can be used for control, so you can actually jam just that particular channel, then it can be really, really cheap.
Absolutely. We want to explore like techniques where we combine the different domains that we can use for targeting, like spectrally, spatially, and also in the time domain. So this is actually something we have up for future work. Thanks.
Thank you for the work. And I have 2 questions. The one is, does the adversary know the room layout or where the objects located in the victim room?
Quick answer, no. So this is the only thing that the adversary observes is basically received signal strength. So this is the minimal input that we need to give the algorithm in order to adapt to the environment.
So how the adversary can distinguish the different signals from many other like targets or non-targets?
This is because of the optimization of the reconfigurable intelligent surface, because this is basically, the surface is being adapted towards the wireless environment. And this is also the beauty of these devices, because they have such a large configuration space, and we can exploit that to actually really target or adapt to a particular scene. So this is the reason why it works. And we exploit the multipath propagation and then the spatial diversity that we can achieve by this.
And the second question is any other, like, I saw the design looks like a fixed IRS, and can the adversary change the IRS structure? Like, you are using the 3 planes of IRS, and can the adversary use the only one single IRS plane?
Could you put that more in detail?
So, yeah.
At the end of time, we should take it offline.
Okay.
Okay. We discuss afterwards.
I'm gonna go quick. So does the relative position between the RIS and the victim would like change the successfulness of the attack? Because the last attack that 5 meter away is really interesting. But what if like they're on the line of sight with the RIS and 2 victims on the 5 millimeter away or something like that?
It still works. Really, we have tested so many different configurations. It depends basically on the optimization of the RIS. And you can constrain that in order to find like proper configurations.
Okay, so the position of the RIS does not really affect the successfulness of that.
We also discuss afterwards, like in.
Okay.
Well, I think